Dr. Cole Bennett offered little more than a glance as the temporary surgeon entered the prep area. "You're the replacement," he grumbled, his eyes scanning her simple, worn scrubs. Around him, the other surgeons shared condescending smiles. "Let's hope you can manage a basic appendectomy," one of them murmured. "We're swamped." The woman, Dr. Imani Adebayo, simply tied her hair back with a quiet nod. To them, she was just another fill-in, desperate for a shift. But as Imani approached the scrub sink, a familiar sense of calm settled over her. They perceived a temp surgeon needing the work. They couldn't possibly know about the makeshift clinics in Central Africa, the life-or-death operations performed amid regional conflicts, or the countless lives she had pulled back from the brink when no other help was coming. "Let me guess," Bennett continued his condescending assessment, "some small-town hospital background." She began to scrub her hands with a practiced methodical rhythm, a technique honed where every second was precious. "Something like that," she answered softly. The events of the next few hours were about to completely shatter their preconceptions. The trauma bay descended into organized chaos just before midnight. A multi-car pileup was on its way. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio, announcing 3 critical patients arriving in minutes. Dr. Bennett swore under his breath. His team was already stretched thin. "Get Adebayo in a trauma room," he ordered the head nurse. "She can take the least severe case." Imani moved into the second trauma bay with a quiet efficiency that went unnoticed, her practiced eyes checking the equipment. Through the observation window, she could see the senior surgical team steeling themselves for the cases they believed would be the most demanding. The first ambulance arrived with a piercing siren. Imani overheard the paramedics report. A young man, motorcyclist versus a truck, with severe abdominal injuries and rapidly dropping vitals. As they rushed him toward the main trauma room, the lead paramedic froze, his gaze fixed on Imani through the glass. "Hold on," he said, staring intently. "Is that—" "No, it couldn't be." But Imani's attention was already on her own patient, a woman with multiple fractures from the same accident, a case that would typically demand 2 hours of meticulous surgery. Her patient was conscious but failing fast with compound fractures in her leg and signs of internal bleeding. Imani's hands moved with a deftness that made the assisting nurses stop and stare. This wasn't mere competence. She was operating with a degree of skill they rarely witnessed, especially from a temporary hire. "Prep operating room 3 now," Imani stated, her voice imbued with an authority that compelled immediate action. "I need a full trauma workup, 6 units of cross-matched blood and orthopedics on standby." The charge nurse found herself executing the commands before consciously processing who had issued them. Inside the OR, Imani was transformed. Her movements were a fluid dance of precision, each incision deliberate and perfect. A procedure that should have taken 3 hours was completed in nearly half that time. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Patel, a veteran of 15 years, had never seen anything like it. "Where did you study?" he asked in a low voice. As Imani executed a complex vascular repair, most surgeons would defer to a specialist. "Here and there," she replied, her focus unbroken as she aligned the fractured bones with geometric accuracy. Her technique was not just flawless, it was astonishingly fast. The operating room door swung open, and Dr. Bennett entered to check on the supposedly simple case he had assigned the temp. He anticipated finding her struggling or requiring his guidance. Instead, he saw Imani finishing what appeared to be a textbook perfect closure. He glanced at his watch. 53 minutes from the first cut. "This patient is stable for recovery," Imani announced, pulling off her gloves. "The prognosis is excellent." She walked past the astounded chief surgeon as if this were just another day. Bennett hurried after her into the corridor, his mind reeling. "Adebayo," he called out. "That procedure. How did you—" But Imani was already scanning the chart for the next emergency, a cardiac patient who had just been brought in. It was the type of case that would normally fall to the department's top surgeon. "I can handle this one," she said plainly, already moving toward OR2. "Unless you have a more pressing need for me, doctor." Bennett could only watch as she vanished into the other operating room, a startling suspicion beginning to take root. This wasn't just talent. This was something forged in an environment far removed from community hospitals and temp agencies. Meanwhile, in the staff lounge, the paramedic who had brought in the first trauma victim was animatedly talking to his colleagues. "I'm telling you, I recognize her. That surgeon in trauma, too. I've seen her operate before, but it wasn't in any hospital I know." By 1:45 in the morning, a buzz was spreading through the hospital. The temp in OR2 had just finished a complicated cardiac repair in 38 minutes, a surgery that usually took a full team 3 hours. Imani emerged from the room with the same unruffled demeanor, her patient stabilized. Dr. Bennett intercepted her near the prep sinks. "Adebayo, I have to know where you trained. That cardiac procedure. I've only ever seen that technique used by surgeons with humanitarian field experience." Imani met his gaze, her expression neutral. "I've learned a few things over the years," she said, starting to scrub in for her third case. A pediatric emergency had just come up, a 7-year-old boy with internal injuries from the pileup. It was a delicate operation that made even the most seasoned surgeons anxious. "That case goes to Dr. Peterson," Bennett insisted. "Pediatric trauma is a specialty." "I have it," Imani interrupted him quietly. "Peterson is still tied up with the first patient. This child cannot afford to wait." She was already on her way to OR1, her confidence absolute. The pediatric surgical team gathered, their nervousness palpable. Operating on a child was always fraught with emotion, and they were about to work with a complete unknown. Imani seemed to read their anxiety as she entered. "Give me the patient's history," she said calmly, her eyes absorbing every detail of the scans. 7 years old, probable splenic laceration with active bleeding. Her steady voice had an immediate calming effect on the room. What followed would become a hospital legend. Imani's hands moved with a precision that bordered on miraculous. She repaired the child's injuries with a blend of speed and delicacy that left the entire team in silent awe. "His vitals are stabilizing," the anesthesiologist said, his voice filled with wonder. Imani worked in a state of deep focus, her methods revealing a background far beyond conventional medicine. She operated like someone accustomed to the most unforgiving conditions where there was no margin for error. 42 minutes later, she was closing the incision. "He should have a full recovery," she announced. The pediatric nurses exchanged looks of disbelief, knowing they had just witnessed one of the most masterful surgical performances of their careers. Outside the OR, Dr. Bennett was on the phone with the chief of staff. "I don't care what time it is, Evelyn. You need to come down here. We have a situation with the temp surgeon, and it's not what you think." Imani emerged, already looking for the next challenge. "What's next?" she asked the charge nurse, as if performing 3 flawless surgeries in 2 hours was perfectly ordinary. "A complex gallbladder just came up," the nurse replied, still staring at Imani as if she were an apparition. "The patient has significant scar tissue from prior surgeries." "I'll take it," Imani said without hesitation. "Prep or 3. Dr. Bennett moved to block her path. "Adebayo, I need answers. Who are you?" But she was already walking away, her focus entirely on the next person who needed her skills. In the break room, the paramedic's voice rose with excitement. "I've got it! I know where I've seen her. It was a few years ago at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital in Johannesburg. She was with the Global Response Team, the ones they bring in for the absolute worst humanitarian crises. They called her the Angel because she could save patients everyone else had written off." If Imani Adebayo heard the whispers that now followed her, she showed no sign. She had a job to do. At 2:15 a.m., Imani came out of OR3, having completed the difficult gallbladder surgery. A procedure that should have taken 4 hours was done in 55 minutes, with the patient already showing positive signs. The surgical team was no longer just amazed. They were beginning to think they were part of a historic event. Dr. Bennett was waiting for her, now accompanied by the Chief of Staff, Dr. Evelyn Reed, who had driven in despite the late hour. "Dr. Adebayo," Dr. Reed began formally, "4 perfect surgeries in under 3 hours is beyond unusual. It's unheard of. We need to verify your credentials." Imani paused, her hand near the OR schedule where a 5th case, an emergency appendectomy with complications, was now listed. "My credentials are valid," Imani said calmly. "The patient in Trauma 5 requires immediate care. We can handle the paperwork after I'm done." She started toward the prep room with the same quiet resolve that had defined her entire shift. "Adebayo," Dr. Bennett's voice was different now, stripped of its earlier arrogance and filled with something close to reverence. "The paramedic recognized you. Johannesburg, the Global Response Unit. Is that true?" Imani stopped, her back to them. For the first time all night, a flicker of hesitation seemed to cross her. In the ensuing silence, the ambient sounds of the hospital filled the air. "There are people alive today because of the work I did in field clinics," she said at last. "When you're operating in a tent in a conflict zone, you learn to be fast, and you learn to be perfect. There's no other way." She turned to face them, and in that moment the unassuming temp was gone. In her place stood a surgeon who had faced the unimaginable. "But that was a different time," Imani continued. "Tonight, I'm just here to help where I'm needed, and that patient needs me more than this conversation." Dr. Reed exchanged a look with Dr. Bennett. "The appendectomy can wait 5 minutes. A surgeon with your background. Why are you taking temp assignments?" Imani's expression softened. "Some of us aren't in this for the titles, Chief. We're in it because people are hurting. The mentor who taught me the most always said that medicine isn't about the building you work in. It's about what you do when a life is in your hands." Just then, the charge nurse appeared down the hall. "Dr. Adebayo, your patient is prepped. His condition is worsening." Without another word, Imani headed for the OR. As she left, Dr. Bennett called out, "Adebayo, after a night like this, you have to know we'll want you to stay." Imani paused at the door. "Let's just get through the night first," she said. "This last one might be tricky." She slipped inside, leaving the 2 hospital leaders standing in the hallway, trying to comprehend what they had just seen. By 3:38 a.m., Imani had completed her 5th and final surgery of the shift. The seemingly routine appendectomy had turned out to be a labyrinth of anatomical anomalies and severe complications. In less capable hands, it could have ended in disaster. But like the 4 operations before it, Imani had navigated it with flawless precision. Dr. Bennett stood in the observation gallery, having summoned several other senior surgeons to witness the conclusion of what was undoubtedly the most remarkable surgical display of their careers. 5 flawless operations in just under 4 hours. "I've been a surgeon for 23 years, one of the senior doctors whispered. "I have never seen anything remotely like this." Imani emerged from the OR, pulling off her gloves with the same calm efficiency she'd shown since she arrived. The assembled senior staff waited for her. "All 5 patients are stable and have excellent prognoses," she reported to Dr. Bennett. "Is there anything else?" Dr. Reed stepped forward, her face a mask of admiration and disbelief. "Dr. Adebayo, in all my years of administration, I have never seen a performance like this. I have to ask you directly. Who are you?" Imani looked at the faces around her. Surgeons, nurses, administrators, all staring at her with unconcealed awe. She seemed to choose her words with care. "My name is Imani Adebayo," she said. "I'm a trauma surgeon. I did my residency in the States, then spent 4 years with the Global Response Medical Unit in Central Africa. I've performed over 800 surgeries in conflict zones." The hallway fell utterly silent as she continued. "When I returned to civilian practice, I found that working in a peaceful, well-equipped hospital felt simple." Dr. Bennett was the first to speak. "But why temp work? With a record like that, you could write your own ticket anywhere." Imani's gaze seemed to turn inward for a moment. I don't thrive in environments where bureaucracy and profit margins are prioritized over patient outcomes. I prefer to go where I can just focus on the surgery. Tonight, Dr. Reed said slowly, you showed us what medicine can be when practiced at its absolute peak. Our patients and our staff deserve that. Imani gave a thoughtful nod. Your team was excellent tonight. They adapted, they followed my lead without hesitation, and they put the patients first. You don't find that everywhere. A silent understanding passed between the senior staff. They were at a pivotal moment. Dr. Adebayo, Dr. Bennett said, his tone now formal and deeply respectful, I would like to offer you a permanent position as senior trauma surgeon, with full autonomy in the operating room. Whatever your reasons for being here, he added, I hope you'll consider making this your home. For the first time all night, a genuine smile touched Imani's lips. Let me think about it, she said. But first, I think I heard someone mention coffee. It's been a long night. As the group began to break up, Dr. Reed pulled Bennett aside. Do whatever it takes to keep her, she whispered. Surgeons like that are a once-in-a-career discovery. Bennett nodded, his eyes following Imani as she headed toward the lounge. The question isn't if we can keep her, he replied. It's whether we can be the kind of hospital that deserves her. As dawn cast its first light, over the city, news of the night's events had permeated every corner of the medical center. Imani Adebayo sat in the break room with a cup of coffee, reviewing her post-op notes. Every patient was stable, every outcome perfect. Dr. Bennett found her there, still in her scrubs, looking as focused as she had 12 hours prior. Your patients are recovering remarkably, he told her. The cardiac case is already awake. The child is going to be fine. Honestly, Imani, these results are astounding. She nodded, unsurprised. Humanitarian medicine teaches you that perfection is the baseline for survival, she said simply. Several night shift nurses came in, hoping for a chance to speak with the surgeon who had become a living legend overnight. Imani greeted them warmly, answering their technical questions with insights they'd never heard in any textbook. Dr. Adebayo, one of the senior nurses began, I learned more from watching you tonight than I have in years. If you stay, would you consider teaching us? Before Imani could reply, her phone vibrated. A text message. She glanced at it, and for the first time, her composure showed a hint of something deeper. It was from a colleague in Johannesburg. Heard you had a big night. The old unit misses its best surgeon. Ready to come home yet? Dr. Bennett saw the shift in her expression. Is everything okay? Imani put down her coffee and looked around the room, at the faces of the team who had worked so seamlessly beside her. I spent years learning that medicine is about building teams that can save lives under any circumstances, she said, her decision crystallizing. She stood up. Dr. Bennett, I'll accept your offer, but with 3 conditions. First, I want to establish a trauma training program based on field response protocols. Second, I want to overhaul our emergency department's response procedures. Third, I want the authority to make any change that will save a life, even if it goes against the grain. Bennett didn't even pause. Done. All of it. When do you start? I already have, Imani replied, picking up the morning's surgical schedule. Dr. Reed appeared in the doorway, having overheard. Dr. Adebayo, welcome to the permanent staff. I believe this hospital is ready for you to take us to a new level. As the day shift arrived, the story of the quiet temp continued to circulate. So, Dr. Bennett asked as they walked toward the surgical wing, what made you decide to stay? Imani paused by a window overlooking the emergency bay, watching the endless flow of new challenges arrive. In the field, we had a motto, mission first, people always. This hospital, your team, you put people first. That's what I was looking for. She turned to him, her calm confidence radiating. Besides, she said, a glint in her eye, I have a feeling the real challenges are just beginning. And after a night like that, I'm just getting warmed up.